full improvement in the situation in Andhra Pradesh. It has come down.
Over what period have they shown the improvement?
Within 7 or 8 months' time.
I see.
Yes, it has improved like anything. And Bihar, fortunately, the situation has improved. In other states, the situation is not allowed to worsen. But in Chhattisgarh, which was comparatively very peaceful, situation has suddenly deteriorated.
Why?
And why? Because the people who were in other states where action is being taken, they have migrated there. In Jharkhand, it has deteriorated like in anything. Orissa was comparatively peaceful. It has also improved. But the worst affected state today is Chhattisgarh, which was one of the most peaceful states. And because of that, one can say that the terrorism because of Naxalism is fluctuating, and it has not worsened, but it has not also improved in a manner in which we would have liked it to improve.
Mm-hmm. So, but is there any provision for providing modern training to the police personnel?
Yes, you know, the state government, union government is helping them a lot. We have given them a lot of money to modernize their forces. Nearly 3,000 crore rupees are given to them. And then whenever there were difficulties, we were sending the paramilitary forces to help them. And when the paramilitary forces were sent to them, we were charging them for the services provided by them. But this government has taken a decision not to charge a single pie for the forces which are provided to them for next 3 years. So 37,000 men and officers given to Naxalite states would be there, and the state government would not be paying anything. We have also given them a lot of equipments. The helicopters are given to them to evacuate the injured persons or to transport their forces. It was found that the Naxalites and others were using landmines, and when they were going into the forest, they were getting killed indiscriminately. So we provided them the armored vehicles. Armored vehicles are the vehicles in which the people can sit and go and they can protect themselves. And we are going to provide them more armored vehicles also. We are giving them most modern technologically built equipments also, night vision and UAVs and things like that, with the help of which they can function in the night time and with the help of which they can collect the information which is available to them. Now there are funds given to them for helping the people who want to surrender. If a Naxalite or a terrorist surrenders, he is given nearly 3 lakhs of rupees.
I see.
And that money is kept in the bank for 3 years. He can get the interest. But if he misbehaves in 3 years' time, that money won't be available to him. And he gives it. And he is given employment also. So, and then we are giving funds to the state governments to develop the districts. There are backward districts where roads are not there, schools and hospitals would be required in bigger numbers. So we are giving nearly 32 crores of rupees to each of the backward district every year for bringing about the development. That is over and above what is given to them under the plan.
So how do you ensure that they are getting all these facilities?
No, they don't get the facilities. This money is given to the state government. We don't go there. And we ask them, the money is not given and kept into their pockets. That money is used for constructing roads, hospitals, drinking water, schools. And the money which is given to them, to the surrenderies, is given through checks and kept in the bank. It is not given in their hands also. So these things are being.
One thing that you mentioned about the money being released after 3 years if the person has not forfeited it by.
If a person is misbehaved.
Yes. Now, have there been amounts paid out to people who have completed 3 years?
Yes,
and so on?
yes.
Nice.
Not only paid out, but sometimes some mischief also is done by some people.
So, criminal justice delivery system is equally important. What kind of plans do you have, and what steps you think are necessary to improve the system?
It's a very good question. A criminal justice system is looked after by the Home Ministry as well as the Law Ministry. The Union government is responsible for Supreme Court and the High Courts, and the state governments are responsible for the courts at district level, taluka level, and that system is controlled and administered by the state government. The criminal justice system is overburdened these days. The number of people living in the country has gone up like anything, but the number of courts have not gone up in proportion to the number of cases. The second thing which has happened is that every year the union legislature and the state legislatures are passing laws in which there are penal provisions, and they have to be interpreted and done. So this is the problem. What can be done? In fact, we have amended the Criminal Procedure Code and the Indian Penal Code and the evidence law to make the speedy justice possible. And what is speedy justice? How can it be done? Now, the plea bargaining is one of the systems which has been adopted by. In small cases, the parties can come together, and if they want to decide the cases according to their understanding, the judges would give the judgment in terms of the agreement between them. It reduces the number of the cases. We are also adopting a system in which in every court, in every village, there will be a circuit court. That means the judges will go from village to village deciding the cases. Now, there are other provisions. We have amended the Criminal Procedure Code like anything, Indian Penal Code and the Law of Evidence also. And we are trying to see that justice is done to the people, not done to the people, but they are also compensated. The victims are compensated for the offenses committed against them. And then we are trying to increase the number of judges also. Some state governments have started shift systems. In daytime, there will be 2 shifts of the courts. So the same building and the same material is used. This is to reduce the expenditure incurred on this. And then there are many other things we are trying to do. Arbitration system is there. And then these days, the big companies are not going to the courts, but they are getting their dispute decided outside the court through the retired judges and others also. That is also helping. But the burden is so much that it is becoming difficult to get speedy justice dispensed to the people. And this is something in which we are trying to do our best. We have succeeded to some extent, but much more is required to be done.
So we also keep hearing that there is scarcity of police personnel in different states and union territories. For example, in Delhi, Delhi has just about 57,000 police personnel. Don't you think that that make it dealing with crime and other threats difficult? How isn't it a very awkward situation?
Yes, you are right. The population in our country has tripled. We are more than 1 billion people, and we have only 22 lakh policemen in our country. The police population ratio is one of the worst.
And has grown worse than before?
It's growing worse because the population is increasing. So the decision taken by the government is to increase the paramilitary forces. we are adding nearly 300 battalions to the paramilitary forces. And we are requesting the state governments to allot, to give more funds to the home ministry of theirs and to have more battalions raised.
So how long will it take, sir?
It takes time. I mean, raising the battalions is not a simple thing.
Yes, sir.
1 year, 2
Training
years, 3 years,
particularly.
It will
training
take
and
that
all
much
those
of time.
things. And one of the things which we are thinking about is to make use of the old system. What was the old system existing in our country? There used to be a police patil and a kotwal in each of the village. That we have given up. We have the police station. You will be surprised to know we have only 12,000 police stations in the country, where the villages are nearly 8 lakh villages and hamlets. So what we
Not
are
all villages have a police station in them.
12,000 will
No,
not.
not
12,000 is
No.
yes. 12,000 will make 70, 80 villages will have one police station. So what we are doing is the police patil and the kotwals and the peace committees we want to revise so that they can be used. And the third thing which we are trying to do is that the private security agencies are there in the country, and they have nearly 50 lakh men and officers, retired military officers, the police officers and young men working with them. We have passed a law controlling and regulating the activities of these private security agencies. That is not for controlling them or regulating them so much as encouraging them. A certificate is given to them. You can carry on the private security activity. Now these 50 lakh people will be available for providing security, if not to the government and the government installations, at least to the private persons. And that will reduce the burden on the police. Then there are private detective agencies working. We have not passed the law to give them the certificates, but we are in the process of passing the law. Maybe in 1 year's time that law can be passed. We have drafted it and it is likely to be introduced in the House. Then there are other systems, like Home Guards and NCC and other things, and the civil defense agencies also. We are intending to add to them. So we have the regular police, we have the private security agencies and detective agencies, and we have the semi-governmental agencies helping the government. And if this number is taken together, it will be 3 times more than the number. I think it is nearly 7 or 8 times more than what we have today. And that will reduce the burden also on the government coffers. And with the funds,
reduce the burden because the number would increase. You're not financing them in any manner.
No,
Right.
no, we are not financing. So if that burden is reduced, if that burden is taken by the private people, private enterprises, private persons, and if they have security, to that extent the burden is also reduced, and we can have the regular police force. So this is the approach we are adopting.
Okay. In this segment, we'll learn how the ministry deals with the difficult exigencies of disaster management. But before that, let's have a look at this report.
Disasters, man-made or natural, have brought untold misery to thousands of families in the country. The last decade itself has seen several such catastrophes, and the government has stepped in to take steps to mitigate such tragedies. As a result of which, disaster management now occupies an important place in country's policy framework. Some important facts worldwide indicate that about 60% of landmass prone to earthquake of various intensities. Over 40 million hectares are prone to floods. About 8% of total area are prone to cyclones. Around 68% of area is susceptible to drought. The United Nations General Assembly in 1989 declared 1990 to 2000 as the International Decade for Natural Disaster Reduction. Reportedly, it is also said that about 4,344 people lost their lives during 1990 to 2000 in natural disaster. Reportedly, about 30 million people are affected by disasters every year. The incidents that underscored the need to adopt a multidimensional, multi-sectoral approach in India were the super cyclone in Orissa in October 1999, the Bhuj earthquake in Gujarat in January 2001, the Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami in the year 2004, and the Maharashtra floods of 2005. Over the past couple of years, the government has brought a paradigm shift to the approach to disaster management. The new approach proceeds from the conviction that development cannot be sustainable unless disaster mitigation is built into the development process.
I must emphasize here that our disaster management administration is an integral part of overall administration. We cannot improve the quality of disaster management in isolation, nor should we create parallel structures at the cost of regular administration. An improvement in disaster management has to be an integral part of the improvement in governance at all levels, especially in district administration. What we need are better support structures which can make our responses to disasters more efficient, more rapid, and more effective. I must also add that disaster management should also be humane. Apart from being efficient, such a humane policy must pay due attention to the needs of children, senior citizens, women, disabled persons, and weaker sections of society. Equally, it must be based on ensuring that in a post-disaster situation, the affected communities can be assured sustainable livelihoods, and they are assured of a reduced vulnerability to future disasters. Accountability, people's participation, predictability, and transparency will therefore have to be the key features of such a policy.
Mitigation has to be multidisciplinary, spanning all sectors of development, and emanates from the belief that investments in mitigation are much more cost-effective than expenditure on relief and rehabilitation. Shalini Verma for Lok Sabha Television.
One of the key areas of concern for the ministry is disaster management, which was earlier handled by the Agriculture Ministry. Sir, do you feel that the National Disaster Management Authority is functioning adequately and is properly equipped to perform its duties?
We shall have to understand what this National Disaster Management Authority is. In fact, our country is too big a country, and there is not any year when the disasters has not taken place anywhere in our country. In some areas we have the drought conditions, in some areas we have the flood conditions, in some areas we have the heavy rains affecting the people, in some areas we have a situation in which the drinking water is not available to the people. In some areas we have cyclones, in some areas we have avalanches and heavy snowfalls, in some areas there are earthquakes and things like that. So every year we shall have to face the disasters in our country. This is one thing. The second most important thing which has to be understood by us is that managing disasters is more difficult than managing wars. The wars are inflicted by human beings on themselves, but disasters are inflicted by nature. And within 5 minutes time, thousands of people are gone. If earthquake takes place in Gujarat, within 5 minutes, 30,000 people are dead and gone. In Latur, within 5 minutes, 10,000 people were gone. Tsunami occurs, 10,000 people are gone. And the damage caused to the property is also enormous. So we shall have to not only help the people when the disaster occur, but we shall have to keep thinking as to how to conduct ourselves to see that the disasters do not cause great damage to the property, limbs or lives of the people. And the Disaster Management Authority is an authority which is given the responsibility of thinking as to how to manage the cyclones, the earthquakes, avalanches, snowfalls, heavy rains, earthquakes and things like that, and prepare the plans and get those plans implemented through the different ministries. Have boats, have helicopters, have medicine, have shelters and things like that.
Is this disaster management committee or whatever it's called, is that a central government
Yes.
institution?
Yes. In fact, this concept is accepted throughout the world now. That don't start helping the people when the disaster occurs by collecting whatever is available. But you have an organization which is all the time thinking about these contingencies and preparing the policies and the plans and keeping things ready. Minimum amount of money should be given to them, certain things, equipments should be given to them and they should keep ready. And when it occurs, they should be immediately available. Within hours they should be available and then they should function.
So for that reason it needs to be much more
That
central
is why
authority.
it was decided that we should have a disaster management authority, and it is a statutory body.
Statutory body,
We have
right.
passed a law,
Yeah.
and Mrs. Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, was very particular about it. She insisted and insisted, and the law was passed. People had views whether it is required or not required. Union government is there, state government is there, district government is there. Why should we have? But the union governments and the district governments, the state governments, they are doing their own jobs. They are not applying their mind and their energy and thinking about these things in a systematic, concerted, persevering manner. So this authority is created, and it was created only last year.
I see.
Yes. We first had it created through executive order, then a bill was prepared and introduced, and it is created. Now the former chief of the army, General Vij, is the vice chairman of it, and this body is presided over by Prime Minister himself.
Each year.
Yes, Prime Minister himself. And why the Prime Minister is made? Because he is the final authority as far as the government is concerned.
Yeah.
So that there should be no problem in that. And this body has produced some laws, some plans, started working. It is in the process of getting developed. It is going to be as important as the planning ministry is, maybe in certain respect more important. It is as important as the BARC is and things like that. These are very prestigious and big institutions working.
So we would also like to know that are you in touch with the Ministry of Science and Technology and other departments of Government of India to provide information related to natural disasters to people?
Well, Science and Technology Ministry is part of the government.
Yes, sir.
And I know Science and Technology Ministry, which was with me for nearly 5 years.
Yes, sir, we know, sir.
And we know its strength and we know its capacity, and it is being consulted. Now, the disasters are nature-made disasters and there are man-made disasters.
sir.
And when we deal with man-made disasters, we deal with radiological disasters,
Yes, sir. Biological disasters.
biological disasters,
Yes, sir.
chemical
Chemical
disasters.
disasters. Yes, sir.
So we have been in touch with 300 national laboratories in the country. And there we are also trying to establish our own laboratories also for dealing with these things, and they will take time. It's not possible that last year it is created and in 1 year's time they are looking after it. There is one more thing. They are not actually to go to the places to helping the people. They have to lay down the policies, plans. Immediately what is required they will be doing. But when disasters occur, what is to be done immediately is to provide relief to the victims, affected people. Second is to provide them some temporary relief for one year or so, and then permanently they have to be rehabilitated. Now, providing the temporary relief to some extent will be looked after by NDMA, but mainly by the government, union government and the state government. Providing temporary relief also will be done by the union government and the state government, and the permanent relief and rehabilitation will be done by the union government. That would not be the responsibility of National Disaster Management Authority. And this law provides that at the state level there shall be a state disaster management authority presided over by the chief minister, and there shall be a disaster management authority at the district level, and there shall be a disaster management authority at the local level.
I see.
And they will be coordinating. So actual relief is provided by these authorities in accordance with the policies and the plans made by the National Disaster Management Authority. If people do not have the clear understanding as to the responsibilities which have to be shouldered by Disaster Management Authority, it may become a target and say that this happened, what did you do it? In fact,
That happens very much.
yeah, very much.
Yeah.
And then the frustration and demoralization take place. That is why I am explaining in greater detail as to what this Disaster Management Authority is. It is the highest body, policy making body, plan making body expected to help the state governments and the districts and the local bodies also, and other ministries also, like irrigation ministry, like transport ministry, like power ministry, telecommunication ministry, even the defense ministry, navy and army and the air force also, and many other health ministries and things like that. This is the arrangement.
In other words, you have in the states something at the state headquarters in respect of, in the context of the district headquarters, just as you have at the central level something at the central headquarters in respect of the state governments.
Yes. You know, this National Disaster Management Authority is applying its mind 24 hours to the problems of man-made and nature-made disasters, and making the policies and preparing the country. Now, this concept is accepted world over these days, that where don't start taking action when disasters
Has
occur.
already happened.
Yes, yes. In tsunami, as a matter of fact, the state governments did a wonderful job. The union governments helped them very liberally. Whenever disasters happened, the Prime Minister went there, Mrs. Gandhi went there, all ministers went there, and they had the personal knowledge and they issued the orders on spot also. And it helped. And the state government also went out of the way to help the people. And people at large helped themselves like anything. And we found that the people were cooperating with each other. So the tsunami was managed in a manner which gave satisfaction to one and all.
Sir, before we conclude the discussion, we would like to know what is your vision for your ministry and what changes do you plan to bring in the system?
Well, as far as the laws are concerned, we would like to have the laws which will help the citizen in the country. The criminal laws are expected to control the criminals and help the innocent people. The criminal laws should be such that in the process that is controlling the criminals, the innocent people should not be put to any inconvenience. So that way we would like to amend the laws. And the most important principle which we are going to adopt and which is not adopted in most of the countries in the world, or almost all countries in the world, is this. So far, we have been punishing the offender and thinking that once we punish the offender, our responsibility is over. Now, we would like to compensate the victim.
Yes.
If the
Yeah.
man is dead, his